Hey guys, how's it going? Try to be brief. Well, not necessarily trying to be brief, but I don't intend on taking too long. I've titled this video Doomed to Repeat It. Yes, implying the obvious of the idea of learning from history. Um, we're on the precipice of another presidential election. Another 4 year cycle has gone by. And, we like to forget. Well, we don't like to forget, but the media has us under the spell of forgetting, the issue of Republican versus Democrat in many interesting ways. Um, we forget about the embarrassments of the last time the last party was in there, and we somehow think that it's always going to be different. The party is going to get better, or whatever. It's all part of the promises. It's all part of the bullshit. Uh, you know, I think there's a really good chance that Barack Obama is going to lose this election based on our two-party system, in the way that it's rigged, and everything that I've been just observing in the very interesting way that it has unfolded in the last 4 years. In the last 4 years, we've sort of forgotten about how bad the Republicans fucked up this country. In the last, you know, 12 years, we've forgotten about how bad things were with the Democrats in the 90s. And I know that sounds strange, but remember something. Everything that George Bush had going into 2001 was given to him by the previous administration. It was all set up, and then you bitch and complain about what the president's doing, and usually it was the authority given to the previous president that makes him have the ability to do that now, such as the NDAA. It doesn't matter that it was signed under Barack Obama. You want to forget that? Fine. It'll still happen in the future, possibly under Romney, that we have martial law. It just depends on when it happens. It doesn't matter who the president is, as long as that president has no interest in repealing it, or even making a comment about it. The best comment we could hear from Obama, who signed it anyway, was, "Oh, I have reservations about this." Come on, is that the best you can do to make it sound like you wanted to be the good guy on this? You killed your entire defense of of medical marijuana. You just destroyed it outright with the way you've treated primarily California, with parts of Washington and Oregon and Colorado. Uh, my point is simply this: is that whenever anybody talks about the next Ralph Nader, the next Gary Johnson, the next write-in Ron Paul, the next Ross, the next third party, the next guy who isn't the presumptive nominee or the nominee for that party, which, by the way, presidents still have to run in the primaries. President Obama did. He didn't have to run much because he's already in the White House. It's a token gesture, but hey, one day, somebody could sit there and be so upset with the guy and say, like, hey, we're voting you out. And then he's out anyway. And then he's already a lame duck. And then you have another Democrat, or if the incumbent's a Republican, another Republican, or whoever the incumbent is. But once you're in there, the party typically seems not to mess with you because you're already in there, and it's safer to go and just back the incumbent as long as he doesn't completely betray the party in a concrete way, like taking money from the party. It's always something that's less trivial than the actual values of the party being betrayed. But long story short, we're about to go and put in this another big business conservative, just like George Bush was a big business conservative, both Bushes obviously, um, and the Republicans and most conservatives are getting the message out there to the middle, who are the swing voters, to force them into the idea. Just like, oh man, don't vote for anybody. You got to vote for Ron. We got to get Obama out of office. So you got to vote. So it's more important to kick a guy out of office than it is to speak the truth, basically, to be honest, to be with integrity. And then basically you force yourself into support for that person. So you may never truly agree with Mitt Romney on anything, but because you just absolutely hate Barack Obama for various obvious reasons, you vote for Mitt Romney anyway and pretend that things will get better. Things are not going to get better. You know what? The price of gas is really expensive right now, and I still don't have a fully articulated understanding as to why that is specifically the president's fault. Not that I'm trying to protect Obama from any responsibilities under his jurisdiction. But the point is that in 2001, when George Bush took office, gas was like $2 a gallon, if that. By the time he left office, it was like $3 a gallon. 3 or more. So we're talking about this crazy spike gas that happened around the beginning of the Iraq War. And it's funny, Chris Rock, who's probably secretly an blind Obama supporter, possibly a liberal shill. Sorry, Chris, you make me laugh, but I gotta call you out. It's just things I pick up on. Not that anybody cares about my opinion anyway, with the 15 hits I get on average. But long story short, he made a comment during the Bush administrations in one of his comedy routines, saying like, if I went and I invaded KFC, fried chicken would be real cheap at my house. Well, when we invaded KFC, where's our cheap fried chicken? Where's like oil? Where's gas at like $1 a gallon or something like that? It ain't happening. So, we had absolutely no economic benefit from the war. So even if you wanted to play the I'm an evil empire card, looking out for America, looking out for number one and our interests, and let's just bomb the hell out of whoever because I'm a cruel person, or they should suffer because I'm a Christian and we should benefit. We're not benefiting. we weren't benefiting, and now that we're over here, with the Democrats, and the Democrats who were the peace hawks are now the war hawks, and it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the whole Democratic Party, for whoever led the true leadership in the secret government to tell Barack Obama to keep at it with the war and to unconstitutionally bomb Libya, and now we wonder why our embassy was attacked. Just it's ridiculous. So look, I'm gonna be dead honest with you, Gary Johnson. All right, I've been a Ron Paul supporter, but I would write in Ron Paul, but Ron Paul has to actually be running. He has to sit there. If Ron Paul said like, I'm gonna keep this campaign up because I know you people count on me, so I'm going to run, and you're going to write my name in. And that's not happening. So I'd rather vote for Gary Johnson, who has party support. He's in, I think, 47 states. More than enough to really fight and win. If he doesn't win, that's okay. If he gets enough support, as I understand it, he will have the Libertarian Party boosted up to legitimate third-party status where they have to get recognized. And that means in 2 years from now, you're going to see libertarians being actually talked about in the news in the off-year election for various senators and congressmen, et cetera, et cetera. We might get some state party people. He has to make the showing, and we have to fight the voter fraud, and we have to fight the media suppression, so that that way they're forced to acknowledge the fact that he's got numbers out there and he did well. You know, and not in the way that Ralph Nader did, where, you know, he got like maybe just under 1% of the vote or something like that. Not enough to get the Green Party recognized, but it was enough for people to bitch and complain about about a three-party system. And that's really what they just did with Nader. Whether that was the intention originally or not, they sat there and they blamed Ralph Nader for the loss of Al Gore, and which is complete bullshit. You have to blame Al Gore for the loss of Al Gore. And you have to blame, you know, the Supreme Court as well. You know, the Supreme Court, you know, George W. Bush is the first president in history to not be legitimately elected to office. You have to understand that. You know, so, you know, and that comes from that mentality. You know, the Supreme Court might have just simply said, you know, for such and such conduct, it's inconclusive. We have to have another election or some. They play the game with the idea of this gap. You know, well, what, did they think there was going to be a riot? It's actually okay, because guess what? You know, the federal government can have issues. We still got state governments. It's, you know, none of that is going to die off. We're going to have an odd vacuum period. It is what it is, man. So, you know, don't jump into Romney just because you need to get Barack Obama out, because there's no difference between them. You know, to steal a GOP Mitt Romney expression, there is no daylight between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. There's no daylight between the GOP and the Democrats. Everything one does sets up the other. They either create an argument set for failure, or they simply play, you know, the nemesis with the better argument, and thus the, you know, they create it in a way, thus they're guaranteed to win. And if they lose, it doesn't matter, because the other guy's in there, and that suits them just fine. The system is completely rigged just to go back and forth. Controlled opposition. I've talked about controlled opposition before. You need to start talking to your friends about this, especially your hardcore conservative friends, and explain how Mitt Romney is not conservative. Explain, you know, I mean, the concept of the bailout is much more of a conservative idea, even though, well, I mean, it's much more of a Republican idea, but it's not a conservative idea. It's the exact opposite of that. You know, they stole my money to go secure the bank's money, which is legally stolen money, because the second you give it to the bank, you've basically just given it away in you know, and in exchange for, I don't know, bank credit. It's ridiculous. I mean, it obviously proves that there's absolutely no respect for the value of the working man's dollar. You know, the guy who doesn't have the kind of value behind his name. Like, you know, Mitt Romney can just say, I'm Mitt Romney, and that creates money. Why? Because there's value behind his name. There's a perception that he has wealth. Thus, he has a good credit backing based on his successes and things like that. And I don't necessarily have a big problem with that. You know, and then he does the work, and then the money comes. You know, he does well for whoever invests in him, and you prove that, and that's fine. You know, but the problem is that you can use that apparatus of success and ability for good or for evil, and I believe he's going to do it for evil. You know, so just, you know, Gary Johnson, man, Gary Johnson 2012. You don't have to write him in. He'll be on your damn ballot. Just check the box. Don't worry about Barack Obama being reelected. All right? Don't worry about that. Because if he makes a 10 times better showing than Nader, and if he gets all the Ron Paul supporters in the world, he's going to get a really, really heavy chunk of the vote. And, you know, it's going to force one of those two other guys to win by only a plurality. This does two things. This shows people that you don't need 51% of the vote, just to win. You don't need the majority of the people. You just need the largest number of votes. Remind people of that. And B, it destroys this whole argument of the mandate, of the public mandate, because yeah, you're in there with a very small percentage of the vote, and you still have to represent all of us. No more of this this George Bush mentality of I only have to cater to the 51% of the people that like us, which was fine and dandy back when people didn't care about election fraud. But ever since the Republican primaries, everybody's now looking for election fraud. We need to fight harder about this, all right? Because everybody's pissed off about it now. At least everybody who has a brain and isn't just following the party politics, because they're not going to care as long as it's the mainstream Republican or the mainstream Democrat they perceive to be their hero. And that's the way it's going to roll. And here's reasons why I think that, if we don't make a choice between Gary Johnson instead of Mitt Romney, why there's a good chance that Mitt Romney is going to win anyway. It's just been very interesting the way that that Barack Obama's actions have become very, very indefensible. Whenever I pop on MSNBC to see how the propaganda works, because believe me, I'm not watching it to learn anything. I'm watching it just to see how the propaganda machine feels like talking to the people, so I know what to say to you guys. And I probably don't watch really any news anymore anyway. I get it all from the internet at this point, if I'm getting any at all, because it's so hard to find whatever. But long story short, MSNBC has a hard time defending Barack Obama's policies. It's just sort of a generic kind of defense of like looking for the bad things that are generally bad about the GOP, et cetera, et cetera. They don't really have a good argument against Romney. Mitt Romney, they've been building him up and playing down his weaknesses and everything else. The only things I can really say about him are his "I'm a rich guy" gaffes that he always has, agreeing with the Supreme Court about corporations are people, and and everything else, and bitching and complaining about how many taxes he may or may not have paid, which that's no news. There's always a scandal like that pops up with senators. It's the argument has a lot of malaise behind it. It's something. It's a media story. It's just to make things quote unquote interesting. So, you've got that going on. You've got an economy that's still tanking, or dragging. Who knows? It might even crash like a week before the election or something like that. Thus, putting the last nail in the coffin for Obama, because when gas is high and the economy sucks and everything else, it's never good for the incumbent ever. And then, like I said, over the last 4 years, if you've noticed things, what have been some big things that have been in the media? They've been talking about Mormons in the media a lot. You had that Mormon cult scandal. I forget what it was, but the guy was practicing polygamy, and he had his little Waco David Koresh style ranch with all of his wives and family and followers, and they made a big deal about that and got that guy arrested or whatever. Put a lot of publicity out there. The South Park guys putting out the very popular, well advertised on television musical Book of Mormon. Just making all these making all these jokes. You got all these scandals. It's getting people talking about it. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It puts it in the spotlight in that way. So those are all little things that have to do with it. I mean, and just in general, the man was president of Bain Capital, and Bain owns Clear Channel. All right, and Clear Channel owns a lot of broadcasting companies, so there's part of his media machine, a GOP based media machine right there. Let's see, Bain, I suppose one good thing they did was how they reinvigorated Domino's Pizza. Not that that matters that much, because I'd much rather go to a mom and pop pizza shop, and for a couple bucks more, I can have a real pizza. And it's not a big deal because I need to cut back on eating a little bit anyway because I'm on the heavier set side. Um, just all those little things that add up, and you know, at the end of the day, just you want to actually give this thing a shot. This libertarian principles a shot. Do you want to send a message to Washington, D.C.? It's okay, man. It's okay if Barack Obama gets reelected because things are going to push through anyway. All right? Barack Obama is just going to have to put a liberal spin on things that we're going to end up being Mitt Romney's to do. I mean, Mitt Romney's a liberal anyway. He was a liberal populist, flip-flopping, pasty white automaton from Massachusetts. Last time we had that going on, there happened to be a Republican incumbent in the White House, and thus he failed. His name was Jim Carrey. No, not Jim Carrey. Oh, man, I'm not working off of notes today, if you hadn't noticed. John Kerry. I was close. Man, John Kerry, whose wife is to the Heinz name, as in the ketchup brand. So, that's got links to Monsanto, etc., etc. And everybody carries Heinz ketchup. But John Kerry's neither here nor there at the moment. So, yeah. So, that's the deal with that. And if you're in Connecticut, just as an added note, Linda McMahon, really? I fought tooth and nail. I didn't like either Republican running for the Senate. Christopher Shays was my district's congressional district, who lost to Jim Himes, and he's like a Christian Scientist. So the Republicans are taking in all these off-Christian groups now and calling them their own. I guess they needed to alienate your typical Protestant Christians or something like that. So I guess they told the Democrats, okay, you guys can get a good chunk of the Catholics and all of the atheists and New Agers, etc., and fool them into voting for socialism, and we'll fool everybody else into voting for fascism. It'll be great. Somebody must have said that at some point, because that's exactly how it's set up and how it feels. So, and Linda McMahon, WWE, that gives her global, she has global connections based on that, at least global in as far as being in Japan and Ireland, England, Sweden, like places in Europe, anywhere where wrestling is popular. And then, of course, you've got the New World Order, which was a big wrestling team, a very, very, very popular wrestling team, because you had Hulk Hogan running it. And it's very telling when you think about it, because who was Hulk Hogan? He was the big American hero of the world, and and he had never been a bad guy wrestler before that. And that was his time where he went heel, and he went heel in a big way, became big-time evil in the script, and started the New World Order. Well, shit, that's exactly how the Antichrist works. He comes in as a Prince of Peace, comes in as the good guys, the heroes, the Messiah, worshipped and loved by everybody. Then he pulls a dick move, and everybody sees him for who he really is. And then, just like in wrestling, you can become a good guy again, and they'll forget all about it. They do it all the time in wrestling. That's fine in wrestling because it's fun. It's entertainment, and that's all there is to it, and you enjoy somebody's ability to be a stuntman and somewhat of an actor. That's the best way I can put it. So, yeah, no, I don't even think there's a third party running for Senate in Connecticut. And that's probably who I'll vote for if there actually is one. But you know what? There probably isn't. Meaning I'm going to do one of two things. I'm going to try and write in Peter Schiff, because I think his economic policies are workable. I voted for him in 2010 in the Republican primaries. Or I'm not going to vote at all for the Senate, because it completely doesn't matter at that point either. But the point is that I'm going to try to. You know, I will make my effort. If they reject the effort, that's on them, not on me. I'm not going to be forced into these choices anymore. I reject this duality. I'm doing my best to be as undualistic as possible anymore. Maybe I'm trying to be trialistic specifically. I think I am. Maybe that's what it needs to be before we can get into an understanding of everything. That's just me looking at it from also the spiritual perspective. I mean, if you are really one of those people that believes in ending this duality because you now see it as the problem that it is, then by all means, that definitely means you have to truly vote for a third party, specifically. Like, even if you don't 100% agree with them, we need a change, man. You're just putting a Republican into office to repeat the failures of the past. This video turned out a lot longer than I thought, but I'm glad. I really wanted to get all this stuff out. This was all in my head, off the top of my head. I didn't write down any notes today, and I hope you were okay with this flow of conversation as I have presented it. Let me stop gabbing now, because I could go on forever, and I don't feel like giving you guys a 45-minute to an hour-long video of just me sitting here with a dragon. All right? So you guys take care, and please, for the love of God, fucking vote for Gary Johnson in November. All right? I'm dead ass serious. Vote for Gary Johnson. Do not worry about Obama. It's the same guy. It really, really is. The same way that John Kerry and President Bush are the same guy. Very close cousins, skull and bonesmen, etc., etc. I'm sure there's connections between these two. There's always connections. I mean, all but two of our U.S. presidents are connected to King George III. You know, so there's your family bloodline conspiracy right there. Not that I'm knocking my heroes like Thomas Jefferson or Andrew Jackson, save for what Andrew Jackson did to the Native Americans. That's where I hate him, but unfortunately, you can't win them all, and sometimes it's more complicated than we'd like to imagine, but just doesn't matter. Please, vote for Gary Johnson. If you live in Connecticut, try to find a third option to vote for in the Senate. I plead with you. All right, take care. I'm gabbing too much. I'm not going to ruin my bad day.